There are seasons in life when it feels like you have been dropped in the middle of nowhere. You don't see a road, you don't see a sign, you don't see a door. All you see is wilderness. Wilderness is a place of confusion, a place where the map doesn't make sense, where the familiar landmarks have disappeared, and every step feels like you're walking in circles. And if you're not careful, the wilderness will whisper to you that you've been abandoned, that your prayers are unheard, that your journey is pointless. But the wilderness is not abandonment. The wilderness is preparation. The wilderness is the stage where God proves that He does not need man-made paths to bring you into destiny. The wilderness is where He shows you that He doesn't need permission to bless you. He doesn't need resources that you can see. He doesn't need connections that you can count. Because when you are in a wilderness and nothing around you seems capable of sustaining you, that's when He reveals Himself as the way maker. He will make streams flow where there are no rivers. He will cause bread to fall where there are no bakeries. He will cause light to shine where there is no sun. He specializes in building highways where there is no road, in opening doors where there is no wall, in lifting you where there is no ladder. The wilderness is the canvas where His creativity shines. Some of you are in the wilderness right now. You're trying to raise children with limited means. You're trying to keep your mind steady in the face of chaos. You're trying to hold on to faith when the report is negative, when the doors keep shutting, when the opportunities keep slipping away. And the enemy wants you to believe that this wilderness is the end of you. But I came to tell you, the wilderness is not your grave. It is your classroom. It is not your prison. It is your proving ground. Because if God can sustain you when there is nothing, then no man on earth will ever be able to take the credit for your blessing. If He can feed you when there is no food, if He can provide water when there is no well, if He can make a way where there is no way, then when you come out of that wilderness, you will know beyond the shadow of a doubt that it wasn't luck, it wasn't chance, it wasn't your connections, it wasn't your intellect, it was God and God alone. And when you finally walk into the promise, you'll remember how He kept you in the dry place, how He lifted you in the lonely place, how He guided you in the confusing place. And your testimony will not just be that you survived. It will be that in the wilderness you discovered the God who makes a way out of no way. There are moments in life when the terrain beneath your feet shifts, and you find yourself standing in a place you did not plan to be. You thought the journey would be straightforward. You thought the map would make sense. You thought the doors would open easily. But instead you're standing in the wilderness. And the wilderness is not neat. The wilderness is not orderly. It is a place where things don't line up with your expectations. It is a place where there is no road, no direction, no resources, and no clear way forward. It is dry, it is empty, it is lonely. And if you're not careful, the wilderness will start whispering in your ear. It will whisper that you are lost. It will whisper that you are forgotten. It will whisper that you've been left behind, that the promises you believed in will never come to pass. The wilderness is full of lies that try to crush the hope inside of you. But the wilderness is also the stage where the greatest revelations of God take place. Because when you don't have anything else to lean on, you begin to discover the one who has been holding you up all along. When you run out of people, when you run out of answers, when you run out of strength, that's when you find out that He does His best work in impossible places. He doesn't need pavement to build a road. He doesn't need a blueprint to construct a future. He doesn't need resources to release provision. He is the Creator. And when you find yourself in the wilderness, He is the one who can carve out a river through dry ground. He is the one who can cause bread to fall out of heaven. He is the one who can make a way where there has never been a way. Sometimes the wilderness is not punishment, it is placement. It is the place where you learn what could not be taught in the comfort of abundance. In abundance you can forget who your source is. But in the wilderness you come face to face with the reality that every breath, every step, every ounce of strength is a gift. The wilderness is where pride dies and humility rises. The wilderness is where self-sufficiency runs out and divine sufficiency takes over. The wilderness is where the noise of distractions fades and the voice of God becomes clear. What looked like isolation is really preparation. What looked like emptiness is really the foundation for overflow. What looked like a dead end is really the setup for a new beginning. You might be walking through a wilderness right now. You might be trying to make sense of bills you cannot pay, sickness you cannot heal, burdens you cannot lift, pain you cannot explain. And you've prayed and prayed, but the door has not opened, the answer has not come, and the silence has grown louder. But even in that silence, God is still working. Even in that dryness, He is still providing. Even when you cannot see the path, He is still making a way, because the way does not have to exist before He starts moving. He creates the way as you step forward. He builds the bridge as you take the step. He carves the path as you dare to believe. The wilderness may look like the end of your journey, but it is not the end. It is the place where He is about to reveal that He alone has the power to take nothing and turn it into something. It is the place where He shows that lack cannot limit Him, barrenness cannot stop Him, and emptiness cannot silence Him. When life presses you into the wilderness, it is not just the barrenness of the place that challenges you, it is the uncertainty of the journey, because the wilderness has no signs, no clear instructions, no guarantees. It is the place where your faith is tested by silence, where your patience is tested by waiting, and where your endurance is tested by the weight of what you carry. It strips you of the illusion of control. It pushes you to face the truth that no matter how much you plan, no matter how much you strategize, there are seasons that will leave you standing in a place where only God can bring you through. And when you reach that place, you will realize that the wilderness is not about what you can produce, it is about what you can trust. There are times when you think the wilderness is meant to destroy you, but it is meant to expose what's inside of you. Because pressure reveals character, and silence reveals belief. When nothing moves the way you thought it would, you begin to see what you really believe about God. Do you trust Him only when things are flowing, or can you trust Him when everything seems to have dried up? Do you believe He is good only when doors swing wide, or do you still believe when every door seems locked? Wilderness separates the shallow from the rooted, the temporary from the eternal. It draws out the kind of faith that can stand without visible evidence, the kind of faith that can walk without a map, the kind of faith that can believe without proof. The wilderness has always been the meeting ground between God and His people. It is where leaders are shaped, where vision is sharpened, where promises are forged. It was in the wilderness that provision fell daily, teaching them not to hoard, but to trust. It was in the wilderness that guidance came by cloud and fire, reminding them that they were never abandoned. It was in the wilderness that strength was renewed, not by the abundance of resources, but by the abundance of God's presence. And sometimes your wilderness is less about what you've lost, and more about what you're gaining. Because in the wilderness you gain discipline. You gain clarity, you gain resilience. You come out stronger, wiser, and more anchored than you ever would have been if the road had been easy. Think about it. Roads are built by men, but ways are made by God. A road is predictable, a road is planned, a road is paved. But a way in the wilderness is supernatural. It is not about what men can prepare for you. It is about what God can carve out for you when nothing exists. And some of you are waiting for a road when God is about to show you a way. A road is built in familiar terrain, but a way is created in impossible terrain. A road is expected, but a way is miraculous. And when God makes a way, it defies logic, it breaks cycles, it opens doors that no man can shut, and it closes doors that no man can open. So don't despise your wilderness, because it may be the very place where God is about to prove Himself faithful. Don't resent the silence, because it may be the very silence where His voice will thunder the loudest. Don't give up on the dry place, because it may be the very ground where the river is about to break forth. The wilderness may look like limitation, but it is actually invitation, an invitation to see that when everything else is stripped away, He is still enough. There comes a point in every journey where the wilderness feels longer than you expected. At first, you thought it would only last a little while. You thought the dry season would quickly give way to rain. You thought the difficulty would soon pass. But then the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, and now it feels like you've been wandering with no end in sight. That is the weight of the wilderness. It is not just the lack of resources, it is the length of the wait. It is not just the heat of the sun, it is the silence of unanswered questions. And when you are caught in that space, everything in you wants to give up. Everything in you wants to retreat. Everything in you wants to say, this is too much. But the wilderness is not designed to break you, it is designed to build you. What feels like delay is actually development. What feels like wandering is actually shaping. Because in the wilderness, your eyes are forced to shift. You stop looking at what you don't have, and you start depending on the unseen hand that carries you. The wilderness trains you to live day by day, to stop trying to figure out the whole journey, and instead to trust for the next step. You learn how to depend on strength you cannot see, on provision you cannot predict, on direction you cannot control. The wilderness pulls you out of self-reliance and anchors you in God, reliance. And when you've been trained in that kind of trust, nothing can shake you, because you've already seen Him provide in the dry place. You've already seen Him carry you in storm. You've already seen Him sustain you when there was no natural reason you should have survived. There are some breakthroughs that only wilderness can prepare you for, because if you walked straight into the promise without the process, you would mishandle it. If you entered abundance without ever learning dependence, you would assume the blessing came from your own strength. But the wilderness strips away the illusion of control. It humbles you so that when the blessing does come, you know how to handle it. You know how to worship instead of boast. You know how to give instead of hoard. You know how to serve instead of rule. The wilderness teaches you lessons that comfort never could. It refines your motives. It cleanses your vision. It strengthens your foundation. And here is the mystery of the wilderness. It does not stop the plan of God, it fulfills it. What looks like a detour is really the route. What looks like wasted time is really preparation time. What looks like silence is really instruction in disguise. Because in the wilderness you learn to hear differently, you learn to walk differently, you learn to live differently. The wilderness does not cancel the promise, it equips you for it. Without the wilderness, you would not be ready for the weight of destiny. Without the wilderness, you would not be prepared for the responsibility of the blessing. Without the wilderness, you would not have the faith to handle the favor that's waiting on the other side. So when you find yourself in the middle of dry land, when you find yourself surrounded by uncertainty, when you find yourself walking without a map and fighting without a guide, you must remember that the wilderness is not permanent, but it is powerful. It is shaping you, it is preparing you, it is training you to see that even here, even now, even in this place where nothing makes sense, God is still making a way.